What if I told you that the specific lifts that you choose to do in the gym are irrelevant to your long-term progress? That's spicy. What's up guys, Enkiri here, and today I want to talk about the importance of exercise selection, or rather, how trivial these specific exercise variations that you choose to emphasize the most are in terms of your long-term progress in the gym. I made a video last week responding to Fitness FAQ's assertion that the Z press is a superior upper body hypertrophy exercise as compared to the standing overhead press. And I argued in that particular video that that assertion is incorrect and that the Z press is actually inferior for upper body hypertrophy as compared to more stable vertical pressing variations, such as the standing overhead press and the AD press. And while I stand by the general validity of my argument, the fact is that that is somewhat of a reductionist take. You know, one reductionist take gets another reductionist take in return. When analyzing the bigger picture, however, the whole truth of the matter is, if you want maximal upper body hypertrophy, then you probably actually should master the Z press. And you should also master the standing overhead press. And you should also master the AD press. And you should also master every single other overhead pressing variation that you can think of and that sounds fun to you to try. Because the true reality of the situation is that collectively, every single variation is so important for long-term progress that individually, no single variation in and of itself actually matters at all. Every single exercise is great in its own way, but every single exercise variation is just another tool in the toolbox. And the more tools that you have at your disposal, the better, more productive, and more efficient job that you can do across the vast majority of scenarios that you may be presented with, right? The more tools that you have to accomplish any one job in particular, the better off you will be. Now, obviously, some of these tools are going to be a better choice where you want to, say, bias hypertrophy over strength. And then further along with that, some will be a better choice where you want to bias strength over hypertrophy. And some will be better where you want to bias mobility over strength and hypertrophy. And some will be better where you want to bias stability over strength and hypertrophy, and so on and so forth, right? But every single tool actually does build every single quality. They just do so to varying extents. They all exist on a continuum. However, the fact is, regardless of your goals, the more of them that you know, and the more of them that you have mastered, and the more of them that you are apt to include in your training over time, then it is likely that the better that your long-term gains will be. And as I said, that is irrespective of what your primary goal is. Your goal can be strength, your goal can be hypertrophy, or it can be some blending of the two. And it does not matter because there are so many different possible permutations available, so many different potential variations available to accomplish any different type of goal and every single type of goal that the individual variations themselves become rather meaningless. In my own training, for example, I've gotten to a point where I don't even plan the workouts anymore. I do not schedule a specific variation to do on a specific day, and I don't have an official cycle written down on paper or on my computer that I rotate through. For the most part, I just do whatever the fuck I feel like doing on that day within the framework that I have prescribed for myself. And that framework is based on my own programming principles and tailored to my preferences and my goals. So if you've seen any of the programs that I've written, the ones I sell on my website, then you know that those are all template-based training programs, right? They're not just cookie-cutter little programs. So in those programs, what I do is I prescribe exercise categories. And then the user fills in the blanks based on their goals and their preferences. And this is how I train myself at this point as well. I just do so in a less formal fashion than what I have written up for you guys to use, right? The template style framework, though, is all there. And the fill in the blank slots are all there in my program. So I know the general idea of what I'm trying to accomplish on any given day, across any given microcycle, and across the course of an entire training block and cycle. But there are no specific prescriptions for exercise variations, just for gross movement patterns, right? I may as well just roll a pair of dice and select the actual exercises that I do on any given day that way. What I actually do, though, is I go by preference, I go by what feels good, and I go by what has been going well lately. And then I rotate through cyclically in that manner over time. So, for example, sometimes certain variations will show up in clusters for a period of a few weeks or even a few months. And then after that, they will disappear for a few weeks or a few months. Whereas other variations will simply appear sporadically every so often. And I've started to present so many obscure variations of the big compound exercises in the last few years that people ask me all the time now. So something along like, why should I do this specific variation? What is the benefit of this specific variation over this other specific variation? And it reminds me of that scene in Forrest Gump.
Are you doing this for world peace?
Are you doing this for the homeless?
Are you running for women's rights?
I just felt like running.
And that's really as simple as it is. So why are you Z-pressing from behind the neck? Why are you performing Anderson squats with an SSB with your butt 3 inches off the floor? I call it taint to floor Anderson squats. Why are you lunging off a 6-inch deficit with 240 pounds on your back? Why are you performing ATG heels elevated SSB squats? Why pin squats? Why zombie squats? Why top down pin lifts? Why bottoms up pin lifts? Why AD presses? Why Larson presses? Etc., 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 etc. And I could go on all day. But the fact is, most of the time, the answer really is, I just felt like running. Most of the time, what it really boils down to is, I just fucking felt like it. I tried a bunch of different shit. I found a bunch of different variations of the primary exercises that felt good and that I could consistently improve upon, and ones that build upon small aspects of different things that I personally want to improve upon in myself. And now, I hammer them all in rotation, right? And the more of them that I can consistently hammer and get better at, the better that my overall long-term progress will be. But there is no hidden meaning behind each specific variation. Some esoteric rationale that only I know of for the inclusion of each specific obscure exercise variation that I do. Each variation biases something slightly different from the next one. But regardless of what my current goal is, I'm always going to be better off being better at more of them and making judicious usage of more of them rather than of less of them. Now, I may want to emphasize specific variations at specific times if I'm trying to achieve a specific goal that a particular variation accomplishes better than a different variation. But in terms of the long term, the big picture, no particular variation that I am doing really matters at all. No particular variation is a panacea. It is the appropriate progression and variation within the program, combined, of course, with plenty of effort and sleep and food, that really matters at the end of the day. And please don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that you should just be rotating through a million different variations all willy-nilly without any good reason for it, especially the less and less time that you've been training. The more time that you've been training, the more kind of crap that you can get away with, right? The less you've been training, the less you can get away with. But what I am saying is that ultimately, the variations that you do choose to settle on, the ones that you do really choose to emphasize, are actually relatively irrelevant as compared to the ones that you choose to de-emphasize. So don't get bogged down in the details, right? Don't allow paralysis by analysis to screw up your long-term progress, because At the end of the day, these are just the variations themselves are a somewhat trivial detail. And this should be considered a good thing because not every variation suits every individual, right? If the Z press was a panacea, the ultimate end-all be-all for every single person for maximal shoulder hypertrophy, then a large percentage of people would be incredibly screwed because a large percentage of people will simply never be able to master this movement sufficiently to get a very good stimulus out of it, right? But the Z press is not the end all be all. It is not a panacea. There are 20 other variations that can be used to accomplish the exact same goals that the Z press may accomplish. So with that, nobody is screwed. And that's a good thing. Remember, in reality, it's really all just about covering your bases. If your goal is general strength and hypertrophy in the long run, or power building, or whatever you want to call it, which is the goal of the vast majority of guys that you see in the weight room, then include a variety of vertical presses, include a variety of horizontal presses in your training, include a variety of horizontal pulls and vertical pulls, include a variety of squats, and include a variety of hinges in your training, right? Pick a handful of each one that you like, that you enjoy, that feels good. Get strong at those, master them, and improve upon them. These guys are the major players, right? These are the major movement patterns. And if you perform these movement patterns consistently and you get stronger at them and you get better at them and you master all of these major movement patterns, then in 5 or 10 years, you will be jacked and you will be strong. Then fill in the holes with some tertiary and isolation movements to round out whatever you decided that your weak points are. But most importantly, don't obsess about whether or not you should include a particular specific variation in your training program or not, because none of these specific variations are what's going to be what makes or breaks the program in the long run. It's more about finding things that feel good, finding variations that you enjoy doing, and then moving through those variations cyclically, just to keep things interesting, to add some spice to your training, and to prevent your body from becoming overly accommodated to each specific movement pattern, to each specific variation, as well with that rotation to help prevent overuse injuries. And so the way I see it is the more of the variations that you can master over the course of time and get better at, then the better off that you will be, right? Rather, I'm not saying throw 100 variations into a single training cycle. Focus on a few over one training cycle, focus on a few others over the next training cycle. And over time, you build up, right? You add to your collection. You add tools to your toolbox over time. But the reality is each of those individual variations in and of itself is actually irrelevant, okay? Just remember that the next time that you get overly bogged down in your head in a cycle of paralysis by analysis. That's all I got for today, guys. If you found this video informative or you simply enjoy my content in general, then please remember to hit the like button before you leave and leave me a friendly comment down below as well. I do really enjoy reading those productive conversations that we can get going in the comment section on here. I feel like this channel, for its size, has probably one of the most productive comment sections on YouTube Fitness, right? And the engagement is really helpful for my channel. So I appreciate it if you guys take the time to leave a comment. And if you would like to support the production of more content like this directly, then please consider checking out my website as well. It's EnkiriEliteFitness.com. And while you're there, grab a copy of one of my training programs. I've received reports of immense gains from those template-style programs over the last couple years since I've released them. So be sure to grab one up for yourself if you're interested in learning good programming principles. Anyway, that's all I got for today, guys. Keep training hard, and I will catch you guys next time.